So how long have you been back in Ireland? Your last trip was South Korea, right?
Yes. I got back maybe a week and a half ago, but it does take a while to, like when you jump on these long haul flights, it does take a while to get back into normal everything. I mean, the 9-hour time difference, so
you know what? It's I found that in the past I did a lot of traveling internationally, and time zones and all that, and I was fine. I always used to laugh at people to say, "Oh, that doesn't bother me," but I'm not saying that I'm elderly necessarily, but getting older and getting close to 40, I feel it. My body, I don't even need a time zone anymore. I just get on a plane, even a 3-hour flight, that time in the airport, and then the loading process and all. It's a whole day. It takes me 2 days to get back to normal from a 3-hour, domestic flight, really. So when I did China in 5 days, it was almost a blessing that I didn't even allow my body to get jet lagged. I was still sort of on Canadian time, back and forth. So how long was the South Korean trip?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it was just over 48 hours, with plus a day each way to get there and come back, it was, but you see, I hadn't been anywhere for about 6 months properly, and it was both good to take 6 months off from traveling and then good to do it. And I'm just much more selective about what I do now, and I'll send other people a lot unless I think it really ticks all the boxes,
No, definitely. And if I'm not mistaken, you spoke in front of the South Korean government as well. So I'm guessing, the location is one thing, but also the audience, it has to affect your decision. And, that it affects my decisions as well. So,
yeah. Look, I mean, and it was nice to do the interview, and I gave you guys a shout out as well, because, South Korea is an interesting place and they're really looking to embrace it. So I think it's positive,
Definitely. And, our platform, global trade, South Korea, is involved in tons of trade. So it just makes sense as well that, right now, I'll tell you, we don't have a project specifically in South Korea, but that's not going to take long for it to, advance. And they see the positivity in the world of blockchain and all that as well. And the emerging technology we can bring to them, it's going to be amazing, and we appreciate that shout out as well. I did see that. I did catch that interview. A few things I wanted to sort of discuss with you today. As always, we have a whole bunch of things going on. We're still working on our pilot projects, doing a bunch of tweaks and implementations basically. Some questions that, sort of wanted to discuss. You mentioned the incubator, the plug and play incubator.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I guess well done. It's good. And then, tell us about it. And then also explain, I mean, you're in a few incubators. So, how are you going to manage all of this? And tell us why it's good and positive.
Yeah, definitely. Plug and play in particular, I'm excited about all the different, sort of alliances and incubators we're part of right now. This one in particular really gets me excited. Tell you why, it was, sort of a long road to be accepted as a part of this, sort of incubator system. So this ecosystem they have of, it's, over 200, major corporations looking for startups and, tech startups just like us. And if you look at the list, there was only 20 or 22 companies accepted into the ecosystem in this round out of over 500 that applied. So we really were among some stiff competition as well, and also being in the crypto space, we were one of the only projects within the crypto space that surpassed that first round. So they see the value of what we're doing. Carl McDermott was there himself, and he did an amazing presentation. We had demos and displays of the actual platform, which I'm sure they love to see. Being accepted is amazing, and being basically what they're looking to do is to connect these startups like Morpheus.Network with these corporations, which are their partners. And when I talk about these corporate partners that they have, we're talking about Coca-Cola, Exxon. I'm not going to list off every single company on that list, and they're massive. I urge everyone to go to the site and check it out and see what they're looking to do, which is actually get new technology sort of in the hands of these corporations. And they do a lot of venture capitalist funding as well through this ecosystem. And everyone knows that, we are, already funded, and that's great. But a lot of these, VC firms have amazing networks. And if someone wants to, sort of hop on and, jump on the network and, expand our network basically exponentially, then who are we to say no to that? Not necessarily for the money that we bring in, but to expand our networks as well. So, you were mentioning, what are we looking to get out of it? We're looking to expand our networks when it comes to these corporations, these pilot projects that they're looking for. In 2018, one thing I'll mention as well, this is out of California, this plug and play building, but they have locations all around the world. So we're not just looking at, Silicon Valley. We're also looking at, they have China, they have Japan. They had 60 meetups in Japan alone last year. So we're definitely looking for expansion globally through this ecosystem. So, people say, what am I looking to get out of it, or what has it gotten you already? We were just accepted last week. All the hard work is ahead of us. It was hard to get in, but nothing's happened quite yet. This is now, we've sort of been accepted to this secret club. And now the hard work we're excited about, begins, and, let's keep on going with this. And I'm very excited about it. And if people check out the site as well for Plug and Play, they're going to see the companies that we're talking to within their ecosystem. So doesn't get much bigger than that. And I can't even express how excited I am about it. So
I guess, that's a good illustrative of a kind of another question that I wanted to ask you, which is, does it feel like you're inching along because, some of these things take a while to do, or are things flying along, or, where are you on this? Because you're moving to the situation where you have quite a few plates spinning,
to say the least, we do have a lot of plates spinning, but we have a lot of hardworking people. So we're making sure all those plates are spinning and, staying nice and flush and, parallel with the ground and not tipping over. So, when it comes to speeding along or inching along, it depends on, different aspects, of the actual company. There's a lot of aspects of the space, obviously. So, when we have brand new functionality, we bring in new integrations. I feel in one day we've taken, 10 steps forward. Like, wow, this is amazing. But then it comes down to these, individual pilot projects and tweaking it. Every single little tweak, it does take time, and that's when it feels like you're inching along. You can't rush, the developers. You can't rush the clients. So you got to do it for me, I want everything done, last week, 10 days ago, so I can go to the next project. But you got to kind of follow what makes sense. So, actually, let me, give you a little brief example here about, inching along versus, see if I can bring this up here easily. All right. Let me know when you can see my screen back over.
Oh, yeah. Great. Yeah.
All right. So this is just me on the platform, what I was kind of looking at before. This here is, a module for exporting from Canada to the US, so, it's very, very, very simple. You set up all your, sort of address information. It's all templated in. So here we have obviously just basic information. We have Widget Morpheus as the shipper receiver, one of our partners, and Morpheus itself. This is all just template information for people to see. So this functionality, supply chain managers have an issue all the time with taking the same data, which is, let's say, the shipper and receiver information, or the product, the commodity information, and having to re-enter it over and over and over again. That slows down their entire process. So this one functionality of, let's say I wanted to set up a manifest with Customs Border. So we have another module as well. Now, instead of the supply chain manager having to say, okay, now that I set up this manifest, let's put in the shipper and the receiver and all the information all again, we have this all templated in the system. So already the shipper receiver is all templated, all filled in for you. The client, the commodity information is all filled in for you as well. And when we deploy and launch the smart contract, everything's hashed on the blockchain. All the information is kept consistent, and you're skipping a lot of the steps which are unnecessary in today's day and age, where the people are handcrafting these documents, let alone have everything pre-filled and templated for you. So you're setting up a contract, you set up with a client, and from then on forth, you're basically just clicking ahead and, deploying your contract a lot faster and a lot easier, than today's current system. Just simple things like that. And getting our, developers to understand it from a supply chain manager's perspective, that takes time, and, people say I've had this, you're going to laugh at me. I've had this patience. I've had the patience of Joe, people have said, for a long time, explaining things to people. When I was really young, I taught a lot of older people how to use a computer. and people wondered, how are you able to do that? How are you able to get this person computer literate, and you just take your time. So sometimes development has to feel like that, and it just takes time to get people to understand the functionality. And when they do get it and it clicks, they've learned a lot and you've moved ahead, and it's a feeling of satisfaction as well. So just little functionalities that will forever maintain in the platform to speed up all these processes. So that's the inching along process. I feel that's the inching along. Hopefully I spelled that out, for you, and how I feel that's inching along. But either way, even 1 inch sometimes feels like a big step. So.
Look, I mean, and I think so, and because this is a solution for a real world problem, and therefore it's good, it makes sense, but it has to be done right. And all the pilots are enabling you to, transfer the learnings to all the other potential solutions and slightly different use cases that are out there. So it makes sense. And therefore, and this is, my next question is kind of tied in a funny way, in that when I was saying about your use of social media, and then you're talking about explaining to people how to use computers, what I mean is that by doing the AMAs and having the chats with the developers and stuff, to me, that seems a smart strategy, because it's helping to dig into different silos of the information of what you're doing. And therefore, to me, it looks like a good thing to do. And I just was maybe wondering what sort of feedback you're getting from the AMAs and from Reddit and from the YouTube videos with the developers and stuff. So how's that going?
I think it goes really wonderfully well. I get a lot of positive feedback. AMAs, it's people ask you questions, you answer the questions. So it seemed to go very, very well. I get a positive reaction, so I'm happy to see that. Talking to developers, I'm working on these projects with them, and I feel like it's almost unfair that I know specifically what's happening with each individual guy, and they have a lot of things on the go where, they have knowledge about the project. And I know the community finds that stuff interesting, and, throwing on, a few minutes to just discuss, specifically what they're working on. People love to hear it. The developers love to talk about it. They want to be able to let us know what they're doing. And I can see the excitement in them, so I don't force people. I don't force you, obviously, to have conversations. And, if they want to, speak about what they're doing, what they're learning, what they're excited about, then, it's been great. And, if the community loves it and social media loves it, and, that's all a plus as well. And it's, I'm not gonna lie, I do get a lot of feedback from the community saying that it's fantastic content. They love, seeing what I'm working on, what I'm talking about. I get people even saying, I find it almost ridiculous when people say, it's great to see that Dan knows what's happening. It's like, of course I do. This is my project. I laugh when I see people say, oh yeah, Dan's, he's paying attention to stuff. Yes, this is my project, and I know all the modules, what developers are up to, what's going on in the marketing and all that, and I do my best to keep track of as much as I can, and I think you understand that and see that as well, Simon. That when we're speaking about these things, it's not just secondhand information. I'm in the trenches, and I like being there as well. So,
which I mean, I think as a founder / growing something. You need to be, and yet it's the challenge, isn't it, between being in the trenches and yet also articulating as you do what it is when you're off building the partnerships, so I think on one hand it seems common sense, but on the other hand it's still challenging to do it well, particularly as you have more plates spinning and more incubators. But I think it's been going positive. And then I guess that was one of the other questions we were going to chat about is when things like this go well, then they start to have those exponential growth bursts. So, what happens if good becomes really good, and suddenly, you have times 10, times 100 the volume of people wanting to use the system and wanting to use it by yesterday? How are you putting in place plans to scale as and when the world, wants a piece of you in a hurry,
Yeah, I guess there's a couple ways of looking at that. The scalability, just like the sheer volume that the platform would have to handle, versus the the scalability of the onboarding process, right? So, the onboarding process, we're being very selective, as I said in the past, with these pilot projects to make sure there's so much overlap in what we're developing right now. So when it comes to implementing for other companies and other businesses, we have something we've already done that's quite similar. And then slight adjustments, for their specific processes, but that is something we're being very selective with. Now, when it comes to companies already onboarded, like you said, times 100, times 1,000 companies at once, this is something that from the onset, We all know that, we are an ERC20 based token. It's an Ethereum based project, smart contract from Ethereum. And scalability is always that hot topic. What happens if you have to run, the CryptoKitty thing that people, love to bring up all the time. We've always had that on our radar from the start.
Yeah.
Now our sidechain technology, when it comes to the endpoints of using other blockchains for their advantages, whether it's IPFS for storage, whether it's holochain, for processing, or for application development and connecting it to our system as well. Whether it's EOS, people noticed an EOS toggle for a sidechain as well, which we've done some internal testing for, and we'll reveal to people shortly as well. So basically, we have many scalability sort of solutions. Our platform is blockchain agnostic. We can run the transactions on another blockchain that has exponentially higher TPS than what Ethereum has. So let that be a problem. We want to flex that muscle and show people how that works. At the current moment with our pilot projects, we're very happy with the smart contracts and how everything's firing off. But we do have methods and sort of things in place for scalability issues like you bring up as well. So
I guess in a lot of the chats we've had, you've always very much said about being selective and having a sense of timing on how much you do, how soon, and who you work with. And I think that makes sense because you can look at other companies that tried to scale too fast and move into too many areas and became too much for everybody. And so it's that thing about finding the right partners and saying no when you need to, because you know what your long-term goal is. So yeah, I think that makes sense. We were also talking about being on the road and where we're going to go. And so, I'm just back from South Korea and you were over in Asia as well. And I certainly find that it's good not to travel all the time, but every now and then you go and there's a fantastic value of actually seeing people face to face. So do you want to maybe talk about where you're at and where you're going on that one?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be a very busy 2019. Obviously, when it comes to different events that I'll be attending, and other Morpheus team members as well. At the end of this month being February, I'm going to be speaking in Toronto at a pharmaceutical show. Very excited about that. And then in March, I'm going back to Mexico. I was in Mexico in 2018, but I'm back in March as well at the Logistics Summit. Which is just a massive logistics show, the largest logistics show across all of Mexico. 16,000 different people with buying power from various companies and amazing sponsors and various partners of ours actually as well. So that's going to be an amazing show. Also be traveling to California. Definitely be visiting the Plug and Play Tech Center building in June when I'm traveling to California. But I have another pharmaceutical show in San Diego. That one should be very fun. I'm having actually a tour of a pharmaceutical facility as well. So definitely be speaking about some pain points for them. So it's going to be a crazy, crazy year. I just actually got back from Miami from it was like more of a family trip. And traveling with a 5-year-old, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It was extremely enjoyable, obviously. Now I got my battery sort of recharged. But these trips to Mexico and into San Diego, and then later on the year I'm going to Paris in July as well. There's going to be some amazing talks, meeting people. These face-to-face meetings, like you said, that they're priceless. It's not just about someone who adds you on LinkedIn or you get some random email. It's the person. And once you know the person, you want to deal with them. So. I'm excited about that, and I wanted to ask you about your upcoming shows because as much as I'm jumping around, I'd love to cross paths with you, and whether it's in Ireland or Canada or anywhere else. It's always fun for some reason running people in not your home country as well. You feel like a different person. So, Simon, tell us a little bit about what you have planned for 2019 because I'm sure it's going to be hectic.
Yeah, look, well, yes and no. So first half of 2018 was hectic, and therefore I kind of made the second half of 2018 much less hectic because I felt that you were starting to, hear the same things too often. But equally then, 6 months of not doing a lot of traveling, going to South Korea last week was great to then just join because I look at South Korea, I look at Japan, I look at China, and therefore you want to then translate your impressions of them from 6,000 miles away to actually getting there on the ground and speaking to people, and so that's really useful. And also just to get your head around the culture and how people engage, because like you say, when you just communicate via LinkedIn or WhatsApp or whatever, you can't factor in the cultural differences, whereas if you spend time with Koreans, South Koreans, then you can understand sometimes what they mean when they say things in between the lines, and that's the value of doing it. And then also at the South Korean event, there was some investors from Silicon Valley. There were people there I wanted to speak to, who I'd been speaking to digitally, Maiko Matsura, who I actually get to meet in South Korea. I don't meet them in California or Europe, but I meet them in South Korea. So, I guess I'm always curating the quality of the event to see who's there and who are the people that I can probably meet up with. And like you say, obviously meeting the local people are good, but it's also who's there as well. And there's an English guy, Nick Ayton, who's very into tokenomics. And yet we tend to meet in Amsterdam or South Korea, or, like it's a while since we've actually both met in London. So, I guess that's the value. What do we have coming up? There's one in Monaco, and it's a blockchain investors thing. So again, that's really useful to speak with the investors, because, and also like I help to curate the speakers for the event, and the investors we have going, we want investors to speak about what projects they invest in and how they assess which projects to invest in. Mm-hmm. So we want it very much to be a communication piece to see what their thought process on investing, because obviously that's then a value to everyone else out there, and also to get some insights on where they see value. Mm-hmm. And things. So yeah, I guess
I think it's also
going to events is good.
Yeah, I think it's a good indicator of sort of having your finger on the pulse of where these investors are right now as well, right? Yeah, because if you ask investors, let alone 1 year ago, but 6 months ago, or even 3 months ago, what their answers might be completely different. So it's great to keep sort of up to date with what they're thinking and where that's obviously a great piece of information for companies looking for investment. So
yeah. Look, I mean, and I hope to get to Canada sometime as well. I spent a weekend in Waterloo once, and that's it. So I haven't spent much time in Canada.
You know what? It's there's lots more to see in Canada, of course. I don't recommend. This winter has been actually extremely bad. When I was in Miami, so I missed it. I come home and there's literally like 6 inches, or I don't know, let's say 12, 13 centimeters of ice. Where I'm spending hours with like a pickaxe, just like trying to break my driveway. My car was stuck in the driveway. It was just ridiculous. So I missed the storm, but I got to try to clean it up. So anyhow.
No, look, I mean, my wife said she wanted to live in Canada, and I said, what about the winters? And I think she has a romantic view of snow-laced roofs without actually thinking about, like you say, what 2 foot of ice actually means,
You know what? People say that, and they say, "Oh, it must be awful," and it's gorgeous. As much as, let's say, you're snowed in, we still have warmth in the house, obviously, right? So it's just beautiful. You deal with it. Every day is just another blessing to see. Mother Nature. Give us your worst. We're here. We're happy. So I don't mind the snow, and it's almost like if it was a weak winter, you're almost like. That wasn't even a winter. You want it to be, 10 feet of snow, so you can say, yes, we got through that snow, we got through that winter, and then you really appreciate summer as well. So, I don't mind the bad winter. I don't mind the bad winters at all, and I'd miss it if I was in hot weather all year round. So I say that right now, but when I'm in a nice climate, I'm like, this is gorgeous too. So,
well, yeah, but then say when you're in Dubai and winter there is 20 degrees rather than 40 degrees, I think you would miss the seasons. And therefore I do like the seasons. Although one thing about Ireland is it's supposed to be the perfect place to be a tree, because the temperature range is so narrow that it never gets too hot or too cold. So I think it's actually good to go away either for the heat or the cold. Otherwise it might be just a little bit too, similar all year round.
Yeah, people wonder why would someone go on a Alaskan cruise when it's cold? You're on the Caribbean, but it's gorgeous. There's so much to see, and it's just a whole different environment. It's unbelievable. So I do recommend. I'm not saying to your wife that she should move to Canada necessarily, but definitely people should come to Canada. Don't be scared of the winter. I don't like landing a plane when it's snowing out either. But planes rarely crash. Come to Canada in the winter, in the summer, it doesn't matter. There's so much to see here as well. So one thing I want to ask you about, Simon, actually, because this is actually a Canadian question. I don't know if this exists in other countries, but we have something that just passed. It's called Family Day. Now, I don't know if this is just an excuse for Canadians to have a Monday off and a long weekend, but it's basically kids don't go to school. Banks are closed. Regular offices are closed. I still worked, but everyone is basically off. So if you had a family day in Ireland, the Irish Family Day, what would a day like that look like for you? No school for the kids. Everyone's home. You're supposed to. You don't have to. You do it because you want to. An activity with your family sort of puts you on the spot. What would that day look like for you, Simon?
Oh yeah. Well, I guess wherever we've lived, we always try to take the kids out for a walk, because the classic thing is that initially they all complain, but then within a minute or two of saying, well, whether you're happy or not, the car's parked and it's a half an hour loop or more till we get back to the car, you find very quickly that they start engaging with the trees, the sticks, the dog, or the beach. And so I think the thing with kids is that you have to just dial down the bit where they complain first and just say, this is the activity. You can grumble or be happy about it, but we're doing it. And, I think they like it despite themselves, or generally, they're a funny bunch. And I think if you give them tasks and responsibility, then, and I don't mean in a heavy way, I just mean, let's go and get some firewood from the beach, or let's go and pick some stuff up. Quite quickly they get into it, and I think it's good and it's important, because otherwise they get twitchy for their devices and stuff. So I guess we're fortunate in one way that some of the places where we go for the walk, there's no signal, so even if they had the device, they wouldn't be able to do anything with it. And then I guess for us as adults, it's important that you're not grabbing stuff on the screen either, so that you're all actually offline together. So while we don't have a family day, I think we would always try to go outside. And then on the days when it's brutal, we watch a movie. But again, watching a movie rather than watching YouTube or notifications or something means that you're just in the activity that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good thing. I mean, we don't have Family Day, but we have St. Patrick's Day, or later this week it's midterm, so the kids will all be off. So we're going to have to try and find these wholesome activities to do that we've just discussed,
Yeah, what Family Day is, I think, is a new name. We had a day off. It was just like a regular national day off for some reason, and then just renamed it. Like, we're going to call this Family Day, and that means you're going to do something with your family. And you're right. It's about the engaging with your family and having these emotional connections. Like you said, watching a movie together. You experience those emotions together. It is a bonding experience, and you can remember the movies you've seen with certain family members, and it just that's a lifelong sort of memory and experience, as opposed to receiving a text or sending a message or email on a day-to-day. So yes, definitely taking that extra minute. And I think that's why renaming it, even if it doesn't really make any sense, it just named it for no reason, it makes people think about their family and take that extra second to put the phone down. And I actually, we attempted to build a snowman outside. It was way too cold, so the snow was just pure powder. Nothing was holding together. So we just played in the snow, did some snow angels, and we tossed around a football a little bit in the snow. So we did our best to. And when you're in the snow, obviously you're not on your phone. You don't want to damage your phone as well. So it was a fantastic time. And Simon, thanks so much for sharing that. And as always, it's always a great conversation with you. And to be honest, we could talk about a million other things, and I think we actually do want to talk about other things, but we can save for the next time as well. So once again, Simon, thank you so much for taking the time. Anything else you wanted to say to the Morpheus community members, or to your community members as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the one thing is that things are going very positively for Morpheus. I think at the same time, people have to have a long-term perspective on it, that it's not about when do we moon and stuff like that. I think in everything we're trying to talk about, one of the reasons is to say, to do things well, it does take time, and that makes it better for it. But equally, it doesn't mean that things are going to go crazy tomorrow. It's more about this quarter, next quarter, 2020, and to kind of have a more long-term focus on it. And I think if you can bring that back in, I think cryptocurrency in general, things got a little crazy 15 months ago through late 17 into 2018, because I think expectations were a little unrealistic. And I see you guys as a good kind of antithesis to this, because you're very much on a plan, on a track. And I think it's important I think the more the community gets this and buys into this, then it becomes a sustainable project, you know?
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that's sort of been our goal from the start, is not about, like, you know, like you mentioned, people looking for a moon and all that. That's not sustainable, right? We're looking to build an actual business that's sustainable. And like you said, that does take time. And, you know, we're not scared of putting in that time and putting in the hard work. And that's what we're doing. So, and I think our close community sees that, and they appreciate that, you know, the hard work we're putting in, and the amazing process we're making over this past year. So, Simon, as always, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Enjoy yourself, stay warm, and we'll definitely be talking soon.
Great, we'll talk soon.